have repaired the damage incurred by the Turanic raiders. Combat and sensor systems returning to optimal functionality.
Our first hyperdrive test led to near genocide. Kharak, destroyed. All of us, all that's left, hunted by 2 alien races.
We must focus on the matter at hand. Elimination of the fleet that destroyed our world. Coming up on hyperspace coordinates.
The remnants of the Kushan race, after overcoming Turanic raiders in the Great Wastelands and using that place's resources to build a substantial military force, learn of the location of the fleet that lit a terrible anger in the hearts of every surviving Kushan. Located further into the Great Wastelands, this Thunderbolt task force was also using the region to rebuild their numbers, losses incurred in orbit around Kharak. Jet and almost every Kushan demanded their heads, and almost like the Kushan were seeking a closure on this terrible chapter in their history, they moved on the Thunderbolt task force. Using this region's exotic interference, they jumped in close to the Thunderbolt location, hidden from Thunderbolt sensors. The Kushan fleet sent out probes to get a positive ID on those ships that they were hunting, while Somtel mining crews gathered more resources to help with the logistical challenges one would expect taking on a fleet as large as this. During the course of this battle, Kushan research teams reported to command that they were ready to finalise design of a ship that would massively help in this battle. This ship would be known as the Thunderbolt. During the events of the Great Burning on Kharak, Kushan forces captured frigate-sized vessels belonging to the Thunderbolt forces in orbit. The crews that manned these vessels were used to learn of Thunderbolt motives, the reasons why they attacked Kharak, but this information was not the only thing that was learnt from these assailants. Kushan engineering and scientific teams took their ships apart in an attempt to learn from Thunderbolt technology in a bid to be able to implement some of their technology with Kushan ship design. The assault frigates that were captured were medium-sized vessels and seemed to be built to take on a wide array of targets in any offensive action. They were armed with a forward-mounted array of weapons in the form of 4 large projectile cannons in turrets placed to the top, sides and bottom, all mounted to the front of the vessel. These weapons were already known to Kushan scientists as mass drivers, coil guns or Gauss cannons, and were widely used in the Kushan military. Although the design configuration of these mass drivers would have spurned improvements to existing designs, the core principles of a mass driver was essentially the same. One weapon that was new to the Kushan scientists was the plasma bomb launchers, mounted in fixed positions to the front of the ship. These weapons were quickly took apart and studied, and no doubt due to the Kushan having a history of reverse engineering Thunderbolt technology left on the surface of Kharak, they quickly were able to replicate these weapon systems. The study of the assault frigate, not only its weapons but its drive systems and layout, led to the design of a Kushan version of this vessel, with the same weapons mounted identically to the Thunderbolt version, only within a Kushan frigate frame, custom made, using lessons learned from the study of the Thunderbolt version. These frigates were titled Vengeance class assault frigates and proved over the course of the war to be the backbone of the Kushan fleet, being able to perform most offensive missions, either aiding support to larger vessels or aiding a punch to any strike craft attack. They could also perform limited defensive duties in conjunction with the Cavalier, the Vengeance offering their hard-hitting weapons to deal with rival frigate attackers. As the Vengeance class was manufactured in large numbers in the belly of the mothership, the engineering and science team studied the plasma bomb launcher and strove for ways to miniaturise the weapon and mount it in a strike craft. The plasma bomb launcher worked by siphoning a portion of drive plasma from the engine array, containing this plasma within a magnetic field and firing it out of launchers, almost like a cannonball, a cannonball made of segments of the sun. Over time, they devised a way to alter the weapon design to fit on board of vessels similar to the Blade class Interceptor. As such, these early prototypes sacrificed speed greatly to achieve this task. The finalised design of this vessel was called the Thunderbolt class Attack Bomber. It was mounted with 2 miniaturised plasma bomb launchers in fixed mounts to the front and used a modified Blade chassis. The Thunderbolt was particularly vulnerable to interceptors and anti-frigate corvettes due to the lack of any defensive weaponry. What this vessel did have, however, is a particular taste for frigates. This plasma bomb launcher dealing heavy damage to mid-sized vessels, and en masse, the Thunderbolt could deal with heavier targets. During the course of the war, the Thunderbolt was used in many key victories, being used to cripple enemy mining operations, running raids on enemy carriers, and removing frigate screening flotillas in larger attacks. The pilots of the Thunderbolts, although discouraged to do so, were often seen engaging fighters and corvettes in situations that did not offer fighter protection for themselves. Although the plasma bomb launcher was ill-suited to this task, Thunderbolt pilots were known to have achieved confirmed kills of fighters and corvettes. Used until the end of the war, the Thunderbolt proved unpopular amongst pilots, yet essential to the war effort. It was vulnerable to some, yet deadly to others. Preparations were nearing completion and flight crews scrambled for staging before the battle. Corvette crews were lowered into their vessels in protective caskets. Interceptor pilots were given stimulants and various chemicals to help with hygiene manoeuvring. Bridge crews manned their stations on Kushan frigates, and gunnery details aboard the mothership inspected their weapons meticulously. The element of surprise in any battle is not to be underestimated, and this battle was no exception. If the Taidan had known of the incoming Kushan fleet, they would have called for backup, making this battle near impossible to win. The Kushan banked heavily on the element of surprise, seeming that this factor would give them a sizable leverage on this engagement. They moved quickly. Firstly, Thunderbolt wings, escorted by blades, hit frigates in an attempt to draw them away from the Taidani carrier. To moderate success, the Thunderbolts were successful at picking off a number of Taidani assault frigates and ion cannon frigates. This left a gap in their defences, a gap that Kushan frigates exploited, punching their way towards the command element of their fleet. The Taidan carrier was backed up by its escorting destroyers, 2 of them. These vessels were more of a match for any single Kushan frigate. The destroyers moved to protect their carrier and made short work of numerous Kushan frigates. Kushan Thunderbolt wings moved on one of the destroyers, targeting their engine array to cripple her as Taidani interceptor pilots fought desperately to flush off the destroyer's boarders. Taking heavy losses, the Thunderbolt withdrew after they knocked out their target's engine array, leaving the rest to Kushan frigate flotillas. The Kushan frigate flotillas wrecked the crippling destroyer from ship to stern, and in quick succession the fusion cores of the ship breached, leaving only ionised gases and fragments of hull behind. Salvage corvette teams attempted to move on the other destroyer, a number of which being destroyed as the remaining destroyer attempted to clear its boarders with its heavy guns. The salvage team with their marine complements fought through barrages of heavy mass driver rounds and latched onto the destroyer's hull, burning Kushan-sized holes through its superstructure. Marines fought through the deck of this vessel as the crew of the destroyer fought and lost each deck, one at a time. Fighting their way to the ship's main armaments, they planted charges on the key machinery of the ship's mass drivers and ion cannons. In a mere handful of minutes, Kushan Marines had eliminated a sizable portion of the destroyer's crew and blew charges attached to its weapons, taking this destroyer out of the fight. Their salvage corvettes towed this destroyer back to the Kushan mothership so that the job could be finished leaving the ship in the tinkering hands of Kushan engineering and science teams. The Tidan attempted to hit back at Kushan forces, striking the mining detail nearby. Cavalier escorts fought tooth and nail as near-suicidal Tidan strikecraft hit the Samtal mining teams hard. This attack was limited, however, as by now Tidani numbers were low. Both of the Tidan destroyers were out of action and the majority of their frigates had been destroyed. Kushan Command finally gave the go to move on the carrier, forcing Tidan raiding wings back for defensive operations. The remnants of the Tidan fleet hit oversized punches for a force of their number, enacting a heavy toll on the Kushan fleet. The mass drivers of the carrier belched out their magnetic ammunition at the attacking Thunderbolt pilots, who were beginning to burn sizable holes in the ship's deck. With combo punches from assault frigates, ion beams and strikecraft hit and run attacks, the carrier finally succumbed to the Kushan forces, and this fight was over. As Kushan search and rescue crews sought out the escape pods of their fallen brethren and the mining ships picked over the wreckage of the larger vessels, Karen Jet inspected the toll of this battle in her augmented reality, seeing flickers of radio receivers blink out one by one. Hearing the desperate pleas of Kushan pilots who were exposed to space beyond salvation, and witnessing the body bags be neatly lined up on the flight deck. She watched Kushan's surviving numbers go down significantly today. Every pilot who gave their lives so that the others could one day see the sun rise over the planet Higara, themselves blissfully unaware in cryo-induced slumber. Every call sign, every radio broadcast, every face that now haunted this place, she would remember. Thank you for the watch. I would like to thank the official members of the channel: David Gate, Asoka Ashla Tanyo, Swifto Scythe, Ministry of Magic Department of Mysteries, Patrick Green, The Wandering Reapers Gaming Community, Commander Omega 88, Alex Simon, Mol Olsen and Admiral Deathbane. If you would like to become an official backer of the channel and get some exclusive content in the members section, then follow the link in the description. If you would like to leave a one-off donation and get your name mentioned in the video, follow the Ko-fi link also in the description. Please make sure to like the video if you enjoyed it, as this helps massively help my video reach more people, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Until next time, Commanders, 07.